All right, so now I'm going to do a follow-up to the previous one I did about trial by jury and how our consciousness has been subverted to believe that government is above us. So I did a definition of statism earlier. Now I'm going to read the one here on democracy defined. So the definition of status: one who believes in the absolute control of the people by government officials in all aspects of life. Government officials in all aspects of life. Social, economic, and other, as opposed to the Democrat, not party political. So they're not talking about the Democrat as a political party. They're talking about the democratic person, which is an entirely different thing, who believes in control of government by the people. To achieve this end and protect the innocent from arbitrary government, the democratic person uncompromisingly insists and requires ordinary citizens as jurors in trial by jury to have the final say and control over every act of law enforcement. And you just really let that sink in, right? So people being saying that, they believe in democracy, how many can really say that's what they've defined as democracy, right? Someone who uncompromisingly insists and requires ordinary citizens as jurors in trial by jury. This is where we have control over the government. And how little do you ever hear people talk about that? It just doesn't happen. It's been wiped from our consciousness, and that's deliberate, right? Here we go. Within the continent of Europe, and to a great extent within modern Britain, the collective awareness that all Europeans once universally shared a constitutional ideal, has been eroded by political miseducation. So there you have it right there. The whole purpose of politics is in this sentence, right? It's to erode your understanding of the Constitution. That's what politics, that's its purpose. It says it to you right there. So when we think we're going to get a political solution that's going to help us, you fully do need to understand this bit, man. Politics is not about liberty and your freedom. It's about enslavement. So you think anyone's coming here with a political solution, no matter who they are and what they sound like, they're coming here to enslave you. And until you understand this bit, really get this through your head, you're going to keep falling for the same trap, and you're just going to keep chasing your tail, and you're going to keep repeating the same pain for the next generation. And then they're going to be none the wiser, because it's happened to us, and it's time for us to stand above that and really look into this deeply. Alrighty, so I just wanted to put that one up. So I'm going to go back to the Bill of Rights one again, because it's really important to show that again. I'm just going to read that last section. So it says, by being drawn in, one is accepting and embracing the whole act without realizing it, that elsewhere the declaration. I was going to interrupt it then. So I'll start again. By being drawn in, one is accepting and embracing the whole act without realizing that elsewhere the declaration text contained one of the most devastating weapons to the original constitutional safety mechanism: the annihilation of trial by jury and annulment by jury. Annulment by jury means that any piece of legislation that's deemed unjust because the accused, who was brought before the trial, before a jury of the people, was deemed innocent, then they get to annul that piece of legislation. That's the power of the jury. That's how we have the final say over what becomes, law, what legislation becomes permanent. Okay, and it's through that. So that's how they had to get rid of it, right? Is to write in this false version of it that made it look like it, and then take out the most devastating parts. So I keep getting interrupted, so hopefully I can just finish this off. So like I've shown you in the past, this is the People's Trinity. So we've got the trial by jury system, the accused and legislation is on trial, and the individual juror is the final arbiter. They get the final say of what becomes, what legislation is allowed to stand and what isn't. And then if that piece of legislation is deemed unjust, annulment by jury. So this is the other part that they don't tell you about. The third part was the most devastating part. So when they took, the trial by jury and annulment by jury out, there was also one other bit they took out, which you're never going to hear about, and that's common law private prosecution. And what that is that any member of parliament whose name was on the bill that became that piece of legislation that was deemed unjust by the jury, they can now be privately prosecuted as a man or woman in their private and unlimited capacity, right? And they're going to stand for crimes under common law. Nothing to do with legal legislation. They've got none of that protection, right? None of this false stuff that they create, because that's just a shield to conceal crime. That's all the legal system and the legislative system was designed to do. right? As soon as we gave them the grant of authority to write themselves into authority, that's what they did to us, you know? And so they've never, ever had the legislative authority to write themselves in, all righty? They just didn't. So here it is. Let me just find it. Government has no authority to tamper with the structure of which itself is only a part. It cannot write itself into constitutional authority. Alrighty, you really need to understand that. So this constitution that we have here, what we think is a constitution, the 1901 Australia, Commonwealth of Australia, which doesn't exist, there's no such thing as a Commonwealth of Australia, right? That thing that most people stand under and believe that that's protecting them, that's everything I've just explained. That's what that is. You think that's protecting you? Think again. That's why you're never going to get justice. That's why we don't have courts that have trial by jury systems. You have what? The High Court. What's in there? A judge. What's a judge? He's one of their mates, right? One of the Freemason buddies. That's all they are, you know. So that's who's coming. That's where you're going to get your justice, right? Supreme Court, no different. County Court, no different. Magistrates Court, no different. It's all the same system. That's a private corporate hearing that you're in, and you think you're going to get justice out of that? You know what I mean? That's the part we need to understand. There is no protection under this 1901 Commonwealth Constitution of Australia Constitution. It doesn't exist, right? Because we don't have trial by jury. And that's where your protection lies. That's how it's secured. And that's a really important thing. I'm just going to say it over and over again. It's the People's Trinity. This is where the power is. Look at it again. Common law private prosecution. That's the end game, right? It's really simple. There's nothing complicated here. That's where our power is, to understand the simplicity. Anything that's law and permanent is simple. It's not complex like the legal system. It's not complex like the legislative system. It's really simple, you know, and it's just basic. Like if you really think about it, there's not much to this, right? It sort of really makes sense. You can't really argue with this, right? If someone does an injustice, then they need to be held accountable for it. That's all this is. No different to the tribal elders. They had the same system, right? They'd have a jury style thing by people who are held in high esteem as in the community. They would come together and they decide upon, you know, what's the best course of action to take if there's been some kind of breach of someone's integrity, you know, and that's how it was done. And we're doing the same thing here. So it's very much in alignment with the tribal systems that have been operating for thousands of years as well. So I just really want to make sure that that's really clear. And this People's Trinity exists in the Magna Carta. And that is the actual English Commonwealth Constitution. So the entire Commonwealth realm is under the 1215 Magna Carta still, because it's never been repealed. It's still in effect. They just hid it from your consciousness. That's the only reason it's not being activated, because we don't know about it. And I explained exactly why, because this is what devastates all those power grabbers, right, that are doing their best today to take you down and your family and everyone you love, and they're doing a ripper job. And until we understand this, it's going to continue. There is no political solution here. There's only the people gaining knowledge of their true power. All righty. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Just wanted to really make that clear.